Late last year, I traveled from Bucharest, Romania to Istanbul, Turkey by bus. The journey was over 600 kilometers and would take me around 10 hours. There were a few options available, but of course I chose the cheapest one, although it meant that I would reach Istanbul very early in the morning. It was quite possibly the most miserable bus ride I've ever experienced. Now, before I begin, let me clarify that I'm not saying that this bus company is the worst and that you should never travel with them. It may have been an isolated incident, but this is just an account of what I experienced. The booking was made online and they sent me a confirmation email as soon as I made the payment, so everything was great so far. But it was on the day of departure that the problem started. I was already running late due to some trouble finding an Uber, and I completely underestimated the traffic in Bucharest, totally my fault, but then I got confused about the location. In the email, it said the departure point was Autogara Filaret, so without thinking much, that's what I typed in when I booked my Uber. But when I got at the bus station, my bus wasn't there. There were several bus companies and ticketing agents there, but none of them was Aristur. By that time, it was already 3:55 p.m. and my bus was at 4. I was running around like a headless chicken trying to ask somebody for help, but nobody spoke English. Until there was a kind old man who spoke to me in Romanian and pointed me to where I had to go. So apparently, Aristur had a separate bus station. The good news is, it wasn't too far. Google Maps said it was a 9-minute walk. The bad news is, it was 3:58 p.m., 2 minutes before departure. So I sprinted the whole 700 meters with my backpack, keeping my fingers crossed that the bus was gonna be delayed, and I arrived at 4:02 p.m. The counter staff confirmed that my bus was the one waiting outside, but it wasn't going to leave yet, so she asked me to sit down and have some water first. Although the time stated on the ticket was 4 p.m., the actual departure time was 4:30. Maybe that's what they do to make sure that people arrive early, but whatever it is, I was thankful for it. When booking a Turkish bus online, you can select your seats, but they will ask you your gender, because you're not allowed to sit next to an opposite gender. So at 4:30, I got on the bus, found my seat, and sat back and relaxed. The bus was clean and comfortable, and the seats were wide enough. Once the bus started moving, the first thing they did was serve tea and coffee free of charge. They do this multiple times on a single bus ride, which is the norm on a Turkish bus, and it's one of my favorite things about traveling in Turkey. So far so good. But soon after that was when the misery began for me. Maybe it's not a big deal to some people, but I totally cannot stand the smell of cigarette smoke, especially in an enclosed space. As soon as the conductor sat down from serving the drinks, I heard him flick his lighter, and a moment later I could smell the cigarette. I was seated in the 3rd row, so I couldn't actually see if it was just the conductor or the driver as well, but I could certainly smell them. And they chain-smoked throughout the entire journey. I'm not exaggerating. Every 10 to 15 minutes I would hear them light up, and not long after that my nose would be assaulted by the strong smell. I'm not sure what brand they smoked, but it really stank. Now, I've been on Indonesian buses before where most of the drivers chain-smoked for the whole journey, but those buses were older with no AC, so they had all the windows open, and somehow that made it more bearable for me. Strangely, the other passengers didn't seem to mind at all, and later I understood why. They're smokers too. They didn't smoke on the bus, but at every stop we made, and we made many stops, they would go out and smoke. I tried putting my face mask on. I must have looked weird being the only one on the bus with a face mask on, but I really didn't care anymore. Until I realized that it wasn't working. The smell was stuck on my mask, and that only made it worse. I tried lying down and covering my face with a scarf. I tried moving to another seat further back, and yet it still didn't help. On top of that, some of the passengers talked so loudly to each other that it was impossible to get any sleep. And that's not to mention the many stops we made along the way. We stopped at the gas station, at a convenience store, at a money exchange office, and at the borders. At each border, everyone had to get down with all their belongings to have them inspected and their passports stamped. Then somewhere in Bulgaria, we had a toilet break. They accepted 4 different currencies: Euro, the Romanian lei, Bulgarian lev, and Turkish lira. There's also a convenience store if you need to buy anything for the ride. The toilet is the squat type and is not the cleanest, but at least the flush works. Then just before we reached the Turkish border, we made a stop at the money changer for those who need to get some lira. And finally, after more than 10 hours of no sleep, we arrived at our destination. The drop-off point is in the old town of Istanbul. Although our arrival was later than scheduled, I was glad because at least I didn't have to wait too long before the metro service started. Some of the other passengers got on taxis to get to their next destinations, and some checked in at nearby hotels. I walked around and found a restaurant that allowed me to use their bathroom to freshen up.
Thank you.
I had lentil soup, unlimited bread, and bottomless Turkish tea that they kept refilling even after I said I had had too much. Then, I was one of the first ones to enter the metro station right after it opened. Overall, I'm glad I made it to Turkey despite the fact that my hair and clothes now smell like an ashtray. Later on, I checked online to look at what other people had to say about Ari's tour, and sure enough, although there were some good reviews, I was not the only one who had a bad experience with them. If you're looking for a cheap way to travel between Istanbul and Bucharest, and if you don't mind cigarette smoke, then by all means, don't let this video stop you from traveling with this bus company. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.